Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special podcast of the eMLB Insider. We have with us members of the 2025 Amateur Draft. We are doing a draft special podcast here. We have with us Attica Online, Danny Smith, and Tim Lowry, and they all have a community created player represented in the eMLB universe. All of them had one or more players selected in this year's 2025 eMLB draft. If you missed that, the recording of that will also be up on YouTube if you want to go and watch the first 4 rounds in its entirety across 2 different videos, 2 different streams. We did the rest of the draft off stream, but the draft is one of my favorite experiences, and I come at it from the perspective of a GM being prepared to see how the draft is going to unfold, who is on my list that is still available to me when it gets to my turn. So I have that unique experience from a GM perspective. But you guys came in from the perspective of you have players that you're looking to see, okay, which team is going to take my player? Why don't you guys share a little bit about what you guys were feeling during draft night? Because I know all three of you were present during at least the first 2 rounds of the draft. So Attica, how were you feeling when you were going into draft night?
So first of all, I was very offended whenever we spoke beforehand and you didn't draft me with your first pick.
Yes, I
So
did make
there's
that
that.
mistake. I was looking very strongly at your player, but so I ended up drafting center fielder Andre Johnson the third, who ended up actually being number 10 on my board. So, and I picked him at 21. So you can see how I did not expect to get him. And there was a couple players that had my eye on that I talked to. I was like, maybe these guys will drop to me. Your player was one of them. And as soon as I took Dawson, I was like, I really hope you're available in round 2, but that did not happen.
So the fun thing is that I got into this league after the Pro Baseball Experience Simulation League raided the commish.
Yes, the
So
PBL for short.
I had no idea that this league existed until just happened to be thrown here pretty much literally. But going into draft day, it was pretty fun. The creation process was fun. I love the creativity aspect of these baseball leagues that I've just happened to have been finding. I like writing about it and just being. It's almost like an MMORPG, so to speak, because you're getting talent points, you're being creative about it, and you're just going in and doing whatever it is that you really want to do, just like an MMO. Um, Whenever it came to draft day, it was interesting because I saw the board and I figured, okay, it's just going to be this one stream. Not even giving thought because this league is, like I mentioned, different compared to PBE. Where PBE is completely fictional, and this league is a little bit of a mixture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm completely not even thinking about the fact that we're drafting, real people, in addition to these CCPs. Um, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, my guys boosted up pretty well. Um, I got those little articles in to get those boosts, and now I'm able to. I'll probably be like top 10, something like that, but I'm slipping, I'm dropping. We're getting to the end of round one, and I'm still not drafted yet. And I'm like, okay, now it's starting to click just exactly how this league really works. And literally the last pick of round one, there's Qui-Gon Jinn. Which, funny thing behind my character, it was supposed to be Qui-Gon Jinn, but Kamish mistyped it in. So I just decided, you know
That's
what? I'll
hilarious.
I'll I'll take the quirk and I'll just toss it into the article. And so now his nickname's Jimmy.
That's fantastic. I actually didn't even know that. That's a really cool aspect of it because you have a lot of community creator players that are either direct people from real life, like all these now wrestlers that are in the universe, like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, all that kind of stuff. But then you also have players that are spin-offs of either former players or or characters. Like you have your character Qui-Gon Jinn, and we have Danny Smith's Jandy Ronson, who was a part of this, and it's just really cool to see the creativity come to light with these community created players. So, Danny, can you talk a little bit about since we just mentioned Jandy, you want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about how that came to be?
yeah. I had once I found the Connectors League, I knew I wanted to create a player, but I was like, who do I create? I mean, I never got to play baseball, so I just started thinking about some of my favorite players, and you know, Randy Johnson was one of them. I'm a left-handed myself, so I kind of gravitated towards really liking the left-handed players. But I said, well, I don't want to create another Randy Johnson in the league. I mean, there was already one of those in the history books and in the stats. So I was thinking, and I said, well, let me just reverse the two letters of the names, and so that's where I came up with Jandy Ronson. And when I pitched it to the commish, he said, "Oh yeah, I love that. We'll go with that." And so that's how that came about. Was he's gonna hopefully be modeled after a Randy Johnson. Um, you know, Later on in his career, if that and he's a tall left-hander, and we'll see what he can do in the league. So that's where that came about.
That's a really cool story. So we have fictional characters like how Ada created Qui-Gon Jinn. We have players based off of former major leaguers in Jandy Ronson. And then you have a player like how Tim Lowry created his player, which is a very unique backstory. Why don't you share a little bit about your creative player, Ed?
Yeah, Ed Brown is basically my grandfather um, as a young man. My earliest memories of my grandfather was he was an older guy, and he had, as we all tend to do, we start to lose a step. And so this is kind of like me envisioning him as, I always pictured him as a third baseman.
Hmm.
Um, and just being very methodical and a lot of work ethic. And I had done it in previous saves in OOTP. But the cool thing about the eMLB is it's not just you build your guy and hope he doesn't have a career-ending injury. You can actually boost him, you know, get more involved, watch the streams, play the games, and I can have an impact in making my player better. So it's like I can directly impact that. I'm all for it. So that's kind of the story behind why I
Yeah,
got really excited about it.
yeah, and that's one of the really cool aspects about this league and the community creative players is that you have that creative license to do whatever you want with it. You can base it off of a fictional character. You can base it off of an actual major leaguer. You can do what Tim's doing in honor of someone that he looked up to and respected growing up. That's every player that is created has their own backstory. And that's what makes this league so unique and so in depth is that it's not just a bunch of names on a screen. People are writing stories about these players. And if you guys aren't a part of the Discord, you guys watching right now, you definitely need to be a part of it because not only do you see discussions between the GMs, you also see these community creative players having stories posted about them and their journey to the major leagues. It's a really cool thing. And I think it's one of the most unique things about the eMLB universe. So in that kind of context, how did you guys feel? Was that kind of one of the main things that drew you into this league when you first heard about it, or was there some other aspect that kept you around in this community in the eMLB?
The, for me, the first thing was the first time and I think it was a Sunday morning I started watching. Uh, I was amazed because Kamish was doing his broadcast, and I liked the voice quality. And then he starts talking about this guy who came in relief, and he'd pitched like 30 innings. And instead of it being a throwaway moment, Kamish had this whole story laid out. The college he was from, had and knew kind of like how his year had a little bit of ups and downs, and that's what kind of stuck with me because it's like, wow, he is really invested in this, and I love the storytelling aspect of the league from that.
And other guys have thoughts on what
Yeah.
drew you into the community?
Same for me. You know, it was the ability of the commish just to make everyone seem like they were a part of it. I mean, even like us who were creating players who weren't really, you know, creating stories yet, you know, but you know, had gotten a subscription or a gift subscription or things like that, and then just to watch him go through the games, um, you know, even you know, as in depth or just as in depth as you know, like say MLB TV, you know, a broadcast, you know, of a real game, you know, where they got to fill that time. You know, these games are 2.5 to 3 hours, you know, and there's a lot of kind of dead time in between the action that the, you know, commentators got to fill, you know, and Mitch does that. And these games don't even last that long. I mean, these games are way quicker, you know, than a regular game. And I just knew that I wanted to be a part of that. You know, I'd always wanted, you know, to be in a league where you felt a part of it, you know, whether as a GM or, you know, in this case, you know, I was coming in, I was like, oh, I could be a player. This is awesome. You know, because at that time that I came to watch commit, you know, all the teams were already taken by GMs. There was no openings. So I was like, hey, this is a way I can get in
Mm-hmm.
and become a part of the story. Now, I'm not the greatest writer, uh, you know, but I think as I write more about the two players I put in the draft, it will help me write better too. So, I mean, there's all kinds of benefits for me and, you know, hopefully for the league too with these two players.
Yeah, to both of you guys' points, I think that's one of the things that has driven me in my passion for this league is seeing how passionate Kamish is about his universe and about the story that he's creating. He's not focused on OOTP as a game. He's focused on the full story of his league. And I think for me, watching him and how much work he puts into it, how much passion he has into it, that drove me to be passionate about what I was doing with my just one team. And it's very infectious, and it's obviously drawn in you guys, and it's drawn in a whole bunch of people, and we hope that it draws in some more people. Attica, do you have any other ways that you felt drawn into this league?
Well, I mean, the first thing was, you know, being a part of that raid and then just uh, receiving one of the gift subs, possibly from Danny, but who knows? Um, and then just kind of going with it. I know I was I was yearning for baseball at the time whenever I found PVE, and I think around the same time whenever I found Commish was whenever the lockout first ended.
Mm.
I was a part of a 10-year dynasty league, which I was a co LM of, and we jointly decided this off season to end it.
Mm.
So I was definitely wanting something, if not another fantasy league, something. And this was definitely something that I was going to be getting behind whenever it came to all of the different elements of it. One, just loving OOTP as a game. to loving the story time element, both not only from my own perspective, because I do really enjoy the creativity and the storytelling aspects of it, but also from his point of view too. Um, I like the thoughtfulness that he has for our time, because he'll go batter by batter until somebody gets on base, and then he'll go pitch by pitch, because that's whenever things become a little bit more impactful and a little bit more important. I know that's kind of what they're trying to do in like real life baseball, and at the same time I'm just like, no, that's wrong. But in this case, I think it makes a whole lot more sense. And it makes the story so much more enthralling, just to be a viewer of what should just be like a spreadsheet based simulation game. It makes it so much more interesting, especially whenever he's done his homework and he knows the people behind it. Or he'll interact with the people in chat and then just be like, oh, it's you. Like, I had not been in the stream more than a month, and he's already talking to me like he's known me for, months, years. And I appreciated that, along with everything else.
Yeah, he just, no matter who you are and what role you have in the community, whether you're brand new or someone who's been around, like Mike, my co-host JR, who I forgot to mention at the top, unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight. He had a matter come up that he couldn't avoid. So best wishes to him and what he's dealing with. But JR's been around since the 1.0 universe. But no matter if you're like JR, you've been around for years, or you're brand new, like someone like Attica, who just found us at the end of the lockout, he makes you feel like you're important to the community. And I think that's a real testament to Commission, what he's built here. But moving on from the community as a whole, let's talk about the draft specifically and how you guys were involved in that. So this, I believe for all three of you, it was your first time actually seeing the eMLB draft. Is that correct? Okay. So from my perspective, I knew this one was going to be special because in the past we had like a smattering of community created players here or there. But this time we had enough to fill a round on its own because we had over 35. I don't even remember what the exact count was, but there were a lot of community created players. So I knew this one was going to be special. But we had probably the biggest controversy of the draft involving two of the guys that I have here tonight, involving center fielder Danny Smith Jr. and third baseman Ed Brown, where everyone assumed that the top three picks were going to be Jandy Ronson, Red Ditt, and Danny Smith Jr., but Danny Smith Jr. fell to fourth, and Ed Brown was taken third by the Chicago White Sox. So I'm curious to hear from your guys' perspective, what was going through your minds as the White Sox pick was announced as third baseman Ed Brown?
Well, full disclosure, just before the draft, the White Sox GM had reached out to me and was like, I'm thinking of taking you third. And I'm like, what? Because I honestly, I was looking at the draft pool when the thing came out, and I was like, middle of the first round, and JR had said some stuff in chat about the Reds, and he was hyping that up. But I was like, don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up. You never know how the draft is going to shake out. But then when he called it, I was like, oh, okay. And all I could see was Granddad, just sitting in his chair watching baseball as an older guy. And it was an emotional moment for me and exciting. And then to realize that Annie is going crosstown to the Cubs
At number 4.
I immediately went into storytelling mode, like, oh my God, crosstown rivalry. That's awesome.
That's really cool. I love how it makes, like, he makes this draft an experience. He doesn't like just make it another stream where he's just like, okay, let's just read off the picks. He makes it like the actual, like honestly, it's more entertaining than the real life MLB draft. Let's just be real here.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
obviously, like the NFL draft and the NBA draft are more exciting because those players are going to the league right away. But like not a lot of people watch the MLB amateur draft because those guys don't really make it to the league for like a few years. But this was a spectacle experience and like a full on production, and it must be really cool to feel it from your guys' perspective. But then to see the controversy that came up, Danny, when Ed was taken third, what was going through your mind?
I was shocked. I mean, I can't lie, but nobody had ever reached out to me about Danny Smith. And I was up front in the Discord, and in the Twitch streams that, hey, don't sleep on this guy. Now, there was a little issue with Sir Pug. And I remember when I first started, doing a lot of the gifted sub donation things, he kind of got a little upset, and I didn't really like that, because I don't want to make anybody upset. Here I am coming in with all these subs, and they know that whoever I'm creating, is going to be a monster, But like I said, I was trying to create a Randy Johnson type character, but I didn't know how all these boosts worked yet. So I didn't know how many I needed. I just knew that Randy Johnson was, one of the upper tier pitchers. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, these guys, a lot of these guys are great players, and I'm kind of looking at the league and I'm like, man, there's still major league pitchers in there. I got to create somebody who's at the top end of these major league pitchers, So I didn't know how the boosts work and how many I would need. I did see Cody up there, I think at the time, 204 or something like that, gifted subs. And I mean, he probably didn't use them all over the player. I don't know. I mean, I just came to the league. So I had kept going. And, Sir Pug had gotten a little bit upset, and kind of left. So after I had done Jandy Bronson, which even with him, there was a question of would San Francisco take him? There was discussion in Discord, that he was having with you other GMs about, hey, do I take somebody that I need or do I take the best player? Some people said, take the best player, and some people said, well, if you have a need, you got to take your need, and that was becoming between like me and Red Dead for the number one spot. So I didn't even know if I was going number one. A little bit closer to the draft, San Francisco had reached out to me, but nobody had ever reached out to me on Danny Smith. So I didn't know where I was going. Now, we did the pre-draft, mock draft the night before on Commission Stream, and, I was, in one person's draft, I was number 2, and the other person's draft, I was number 3. So I thought I would be in there. I wanted him to go number 3. I wanted Sir Pug's, character to go number 2. That's why he had the lower ratings, on the draft. But Chicago White Sox had never reached out to me about, hey, we want Danny, or even the number 2 team never reached out, about, hey, we're thinking about taking you. So I came into this one blind on what Danny Smith was, where he was going, what he was doing, but I expected to go number 3. When they called Ed Brown, I was shocked, but then I was happy because it didn't matter where I go. I knew the boost that he was going to get, and so it didn't matter if it was the White Sox, the Cubs, who. He is based off of 3 players, also from the Mariners. he's a little Griffey, a little Ichiro, and a little Edgar Martinez all at once.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was shocked, when, it came up Ed Brown, but I was happy for him. I was happy for, Ed Brown's, creator, and I knew about his story, about him, creating this one for his dad, and when I first heard that, I was like, man, kind of shocked on that. But, now that I'm in as a GM, I can't go in with the same name, Danny Smith Jr.
Yep.
So I dropped the junior, and so the GM will be my dad, and the
Awesome.
player will be me
That's cool.
in the league. So that, it was a shock, But like I said, I was blind. Nobody had reached out to me on Danny. Everybody was always kind of more Jandy, discussion, because he was kind of more refined for the draft, because I wanted him, number one. I mean, I put a lot of gifted subs into Commissioner Strain.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted number one pick, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to go 1-2. So
Gotcha.
That's why Danny was what the people seen of Danny. It's like, oh man, he still needs some work.
Now we're about to see that he's gotten that work done now.
Yeah, he's gotten that work. Somebody had mentioned something about Oregon water, so TMZ's got some photos of him bathing in it.
Well, one of the things I want, because you kind of mentioned this, is that one of your goals was to not feel like you were ruining the experience for other players. And one of the things that Commish strives for is to make sure people understand that anyone can make a community created player. You just have the minimum amount that you would need to do is to spend time in the stream and in the community. You don't even have to subscribe. You don't even have to gift a sub to anything like Danny Smith has done. You can be a part of the community, earn the channel points as a part of just watching the stream. Anyone can make a player. And it's just a way for him to give back to the people that have supported him. And I think that's a really cool thing. And he's never wanted to be something where like it's like a pay to play or pay to win type of thing. He's never wanted it to be like that, but he's always wanted to be, hey, these people are supporting me. I want to be able to give back in some way. And that's what he's done with these creative players. You also mentioned like when Ed Brown was taken third, you felt happy for him because that was exciting for him. I felt the same way when Attica's player was taken in the first round because I felt bad that I didn't get him. Because I was like, because like he mentioned at the beginning, I had reached out to him. I also had reached out to another community created player that I thought might fall to me, was another center fielder. He ended up going a second round. It was Xavier. The player's name was Xavier Odom, and so I reached out to both those guys thinking those were the two type of players that I felt would fall to me at 21. But then somehow the 10th guy on my board fell to me. So I was like, oh no, I feel so bad. I talked to these guys and I didn't end up taking either of them. But then when I saw you went in the first round, I was like, okay, someone still valued him at a first round pick. And I was very happy about that. So Attica, I do apologize to you. I did have you, I did want to take you. Like I was really like, after I got Andre Dawson in the first round, I was like, please be there in the second round for me. That there was no shot.
I know the funny thing with Kamish was that he even remembered some of the posts that I had made on the Discord where it was like, if I don't go in the first round, Qui-Gon's going to the dark side.
Yep.
Yeah.
We don't.
It's like you don't want that.
You don't want Liam Neeson on the dark side.
I will find you.
Yeah. No, that's what you're saying to all the other teams that didn't draft you. Is I'm going to find you and I'm going to strike you out.
And the other funny thing is that with me falling to that point, the other thing that I was just looking at was the teams. And it was just like, okay, not the Rockies, not the Rockies,
not Coors Field.
It's like, apologies to whoever the Rockies GM is, but I don't want to be a
I think that's
pitcher
Lloyd.
in Coors Field.
I mean, your pitcher's a ground ball pitcher though, right? It should work out.
Pitch to contact, yeah.
Yeah. That's it's really cool to see the perspective of the players. Like for me, I had a player created in this draft that I was hoping would fall to me as well, based on I don't know if you guys ever played backyard baseball growing up, the old computer game. I created Pablo Sanchez, the secret weapon. So I was hoping that he would fall to me, but I got a little friendly rivalry with the Mets going because last year I took the Mets GM's creative player Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and this year he took my creative player Pablo Sanchez. So there's even more storylines that happen throughout the draft. It's just really cool to see all of the GMs, all of the players coming together to create all of these storylines. Trying to think through what else we could talk about. Oh, I remember there was something else I was going to say. Is no matter which of you went to the Cubs, I was not going to be happy because I have to play against that player now.
Oh yeah.
So I've got to worry about Danny Smith Jr. for a long time. And even if he didn't end up as a Cub, if Ed Brown ended up as a Cub, Ed Brown was actually one of the players I really, really wanted because my third baseman, Anthony Rendon, is getting up there in age and his contract's coming. I was like, I would have my third baseman of the future right there. I was like, there's no way he's falling to me to 21, but at least you're not playing against me as often as Danny Smith Jr. is.
There you go. Be in the World Series.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah, because I'm not expecting probably either of my players to really spend any time in the minors, except maybe rehab.
Yeah,
So
and that's another unique storyline is that you don't see a lot of players jump from the draft to the major leagues. So that'll be interesting to see if OOTP takes like the age of the player into account and to how they perform like as 19-year-olds out of college jumping to the majors, even if they have the ability. I don't know how the game works.
Yeah, I remember I was following the Mariners. I live up here in the Pacific Northwest. Like A-Rod coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he was 19. He may have been. I don't know what his age was, but he was real young.
Mm-hmm.
For a major leaguer. Griffey, was another one. He did spend some time in the minors, but another real young player.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see
making
how
their
they
debuts.
perform.
So that was something I was kind of, somewhat used to in Seattle when I was growing up. Was these kind of younger kids, like, hey, this guy's already ready to go. And I had so many boosts, and I didn't want to create 5 players all at the same time. Then trying to run stories on 5 players all at the same time. So it was just 2. And then, there for a good while, I was giving out a lot of boosts because I wanted more players in the draft. It was like, let's do this. This is, the best thing going. Let's get more players in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why like 99% of the boosts I gave out, were just anonymous,
Yeah.
And then if I did see somebody, just follow the channel, and then as soon as they talked the first time I could see them in chat, that's where I would give the solo boost.
Yeah,
trying to entice them to, become a part of it, to get in on this universe, and everything that.
Hooks in.
Yeah.
Hooked in.
Well, that more community players, even if they're not very active, I mean, there's still a little bit of a storyline behind it. I mean, just like, Andrew said, I mean, a lot of these guys who get drafted in the real leagues never make it to the majors,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just one of those kind of, you just have to wait and see, kind of thing, on who's going to remain active long enough, to earn those balls of yarn, turn them in, and then boost up those players, just to help give them that boost that they need, to get them to the majors sooner, or even just to get them to the majors at all, because we don't know what the OOTP engine's going to do. I don't know what the OOTP's engine's going to do to my guys, and they're, I mean, Danny Smith Jr. is coming in with a current contact of 20. Potential 20, current 20. So, there's only one way to go, and it's down. So, Let's hope it doesn't happen for a while.
Yeah, and that's another thing that is a part of this league is you could like he was saying, you could boost your player and make him a superstar, but he could somehow have poor performing season. Like right now, who was considered the best player in the league, Juan Soto, had a bunch of MVP seasons, is not up to his MVP form this year, even though he's still rated as an 80 overall on a 20 to 80 scale. So you may control how your player develops, but you don't control how they perform or what injuries will happen.
Yeah.
So
because we don't get to see the injury value.
Yeah.
The only thing we get to see is personality, which Jandy Ronson's got some personality traits, but Danny's got nothing.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he was skipped, number 3.
Yeah, that's actually something as a GM that I look into is like, if two players are around the same ability, I will see, does one have a better work ethic over another, or is one player selfish over another player? I actually take those into account. You don't really see exactly how that pertains to how they develop, because you don't actually get the actual numbers behind, okay, because they have this value, they can do this thing. But it's definitely something that I take into account as a GM. So my question for you guys now is, now that all of you have gone through this draft process, how are you guys going to be involved in the community going forward? Are you going to focus in on your player that has already been drafted and just do 100% full on him, keep developing that player story? Or are you going to start developing some more prospects for future drafts? How would you guys like to stay involved in the league now that your first community created player has been drafted?
Well, just to speak up, sorry. That was at least what my thought process was just a few days ago, and I decided to take my gift sub and convert it into a tier 2 resub, with the thought process of I'll be able to potentially get another prospect going in the future, or at the very least continue going with my guy with a little bit more oomph. Definitely not with the number of boosts in my pocket like gentlemen here by any means, but at the very least to be able to at first be able to see just what I can do. I do still really like the creativity aspect of it, and like an MMORPG or something along those lines, maybe you do get bored with one type of player. Maybe you do create a second one or a third, alts or something like that. I know, for example, you have one example of that that's just sitting beside me, and they have 43 characters in a game that they play right now. I'm by no means going to be doing anything like that, but maybe 2 or 3.
Well, yeah, because the cap is 5, so you can't do more than 5.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I'll be my own team. Thank you.
and minor league system.
Exactly. But no.
The Tatooine Rebels coming at you.
At the very least, I was thinking having, because you can go so many different types of avenues in your creativity of how you really want to be. To the same point of me, I didn't speak to it, but my player I'm trying to create based off of Cliff Lee. So control heavy lefty who's going to be basically the left-handed Maddox, so to speak. But I have another player in my other league that's very offense based. And potentially I can have another hitter in this league now, because the other one limits you to just one, where this one gives you a little bit more depth if wanted. So I could go a defensive wizard. I could make the wizard if I wanted to. I could go with a Kenny Lofton speedster type or something like that, and try and bring stolen bases back again. Who knows? There are so many different avenues of baseball that you can take, and so many different ways that you can make it your own. And that's one thing that I think that why it's okay if you think baseball is boring. It's kind of a smart person's sport. and and really, that's the great thing about it, is that you can take whatever aspect of it that you really like and make it your own. You can put a story behind it to make it yours.
Yeah.
So long story short, I'm definitely going to be investing into my guy, and I'm probably going to be making at least another hitter in the future.
All right, I'm starting to scout.
Yeah, and I'm thinking the same thing. I mean, I want to give Ed a couple years in game, build him up as much as I can. I'm kind of thinking about the natural life cycle of a baseball player. You know, at some point, they're not going to be adding any more potential.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they get to a certain age, and you kind of take it from there. And then I'm not really sure. I have tinkered with bringing in my other grandfather as perhaps like a pitcher, or perhaps something based off of me when I played. I got a ton of ideas, but I'm just going to kind of let it. I'm enjoying letting this percolate. Plus, I'm learning from a lot of the other guys who have players in the league, and in reading the descriptions in the Discord. When I first logged on to Discord, I spent a whole night reading player news. I read everything I could get, and the storylines were amazing.
Mm-hmm. They're really cool.
And it's such a it's like a workshop almost for, oh, well, here's what I could do, or there's what I could do, and you know it's exciting, and it just keeps growing and building. I mean, new guys come in, and next thing you know, they're posting articles, which adds to their potential, and it's just it's amazing. And I mean, like, to be in a draft with what I imagine are like generational talents, like the Mantle and Mays and the Maddox types, to be in a draft like that, and then to know that there's going to be just as great players coming to the future. That's exciting to be a part of. Fascinating.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know for me, like I kind of did, like my first creative player was kind of along the same lines as Tim, you just mentioned. Like you kind of modeled it after yourself. I modeled my first player after myself, and like how I viewed myself as a player when I was in high school. But then the second one, I went completely different. I went with a fictional character that played baseball. And it's just really cool how every single person can create their own unique story behind not even just one, but up to 5 different players, whether it's based on a player, based on a fictional character, based on a historical figure. It's just really cool to have all of these different storylines. And it's been really cool for me as a GM to see this year how many more people have gotten involved with community created players and started developing those storylines that are outside of what you see as GMs. Because up until this point, it's been mostly GMs creating their own players. And now to see so many more people from the community get involved and start creating their own stories who aren't GMs, it's just been a really cool thing for me as a GM to see. And it's just made this league so much more in depth, so much more enjoyable, and so much fun. It just makes it fun for everyone involved when you have that creative license to do whatever you would like to do with your player, but still with the caveat of the out of the park engine can still throw curveballs at you, pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we just don't know what that engine's going to do to these players. For me, I will not create a 2026 draft team. I wanted to originally. I was going to create a two-way player.
Ooh.
Commission asked me that when I was creating Jandy Ronson. He said, "Hey, you want to be a two-way player? It's something new that I'm offering." And I mean, here in June I'll be 50. So for me, baseball's a little bit older than Shohei. I mean, it's only one guy right now. And I think he's phenomenal. I mean, just one athlete who can do both at the major league level is amazing. But this is not my kind of player. Maybe I'm just like the old school player. Pure hitter, pure pitcher. Just not the same. Now, I've become the GM of Oakland, and right now they are the worst team in baseball. And I did not feel it would be fair for me to create another superstar player when I probably will have the number one pick. So I will forego creating a 2026 draftee, but I will create a 2027. I spent all of my boost before I took the GM position with Oakland. It was something that I'd already promised the Cubbies. Oh, speaking of the draft night, you should have seen how excited the Cubs GM was.
Yeah, and how scared I am.
Yeah, he was stoked. But yeah, so my next creative player will 2027 or later. I don't want to feel like I'm creating a player, and then super boosting him because I get to draft him. I have the number one pick. I just think that's unfair. So that is something I promised the rest of the GMs, in the league and Discord. I told them, that there will be no player. Because a lot of people were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that kind of GM. I want to do it, the right way and the hard way. Have to earn those players. When if somebody in the community creates one, I'm going to take the best player out there, but it won't be anything that I have my hands on.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes to you already as a member of this league, and so we definitely appreciate the integrity there, because I mean they are the community created players are fair game. It's not like a GM can create a player and they're automatically on their team. They have to go through the draft. But you were put in a unique position where you took over a team that has a fast track to be one of the first early picks, and to make that conscious decision to delay that draft prospect to make it a little bit more fair to the rest of the league is very honorable, and we definitely appreciate that. So thank you for that, as well as putting the boost that you had toward the players that were drafted that are on other teams now. Now they're both on National League teams, so they're not affecting you too much, other than maybe the Bay rivalry. But
well, with interleague play, I'll see the Cubs eventually, and I'll see the National League East. So there is, Oakland, San Francisco, what was that, 94 or 89 World Series or something like that?
Yeah, something like late 80s, yeah. With the earthquake and everything.
Yeah, where they had the earthquake in the World Series. So, there is a rivalry there. And it is that, but yes, that is where my pitcher that I created went to. He's just right across the bay from me. Hopefully he's out of the 3-day rotation when we face him. Because, I got some work to do with the Oakland team.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot of talent. but right now we don't have the major league talent. We have a lot of guys who should become really good, but right now they're being asked to play Major League Baseball. They're just not ready.
Gotcha. A lot of development to take place.
Yeah, we gotta get some development in Oakland, and then it should be a team that can at least you know I will say compete for the AL West with Seattle up there, but the first goal is 500.
One step
And
at a
then we'll
time.
shoot from there.
Well, welcome to the league as a GM, and thank you to all of you guys for your participation in this league and participation in draft, and for taking the time to do this interview with me. I thank each and every one of you for being willing to come on camera and talk about your players, talk about the league, and kind of give a little bit of an inside look into how people can be a part of this community, part of this league, without having to be running a team as a part of the GMs, but you can build your own story as a member of the league by creating your own community creative player. And like we mentioned earlier, you don't have to be a subscriber, you don't have to be gifted a sub, you don't have to gift subs to people. You can be a part of this league by being in the streams, earning those channel points, and which are the balls of yarn for the Fluffy Kitty Ninjas, and redeeming those towards creating players and boost towards your players, and developing your stories within the Discord, which also goes towards developing your player as well. And we would love to have you be a part of the story that all of these guys here are creating, that the GMs and all of the other community creative players are creating across the league, all being told by the amazing Kamish LB, who does a fantastic job of not only presenting the stories, but keeping up with all of the stories across the league. Like you mentioned, like Attica mentioned earlier, he was surprised that he remembered the storyline of turning to the dark side if he wasn't taken in the first round. Like, he does his research, he prepares, he knows these players, he knows the people in the community and what their backstories are. And I think I speak for all of us here. We say thank you, Kamish, for all of the work that you put into this draft, all the work you put into this league. It's fantastic, and you make it an enjoyable experience for everyone involved, whether it is a GM, a community creative player, or even just a viewer. We thank you for that. Any last comments before we wrap up here from you guys?
Here, here.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, just if you like watching baseball on TV, this is as close as you can get, in my judgment, to that. And again, with the hard work and the effort and the prep, it just feels seamless, and it's just a joy just to have on in the background, even if I'm doing something else. It's really something I look forward to every stream.
Yeah, I would just say, if you're a fan of baseball, or even just the OOTP, this is a league that is fun to watch. You can be involved if you want to be. And who knows when the next opening will take place for a GM position. There's opportunities here to be a part of this great universe that has been created by Kamish, and that's why I wanted to be a part of it. It's a great place.
Well, thank you guys once again for joining me tonight, taking time out of your busy schedules to share your perspective on the draft and the universe as a whole. And thank you guys so much for watching this draft special podcast interview. We look forward to getting back to our regular podcast once the Sims get back up and running. We just had one Sim right before this recording. We are back from the All-Star break. We are looking to the trade deadline, so look forward to some storylines, including a trade from the Cardinals. Yes, a trade has been agreed to by the Cardinals. And so we'll see how those shape the playoff races. We'll get some more. We've got some more GMs lined up to do some interviews. For all of you community creative players, if you want to be interviewed like these fine gentlemen here, please reach out to myself or JR. We'll try to get you in for interview specials as well. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.